In country music, the glitz and glam can sometimes come with a heavy dose of judgment. For Reba McEntire, An Unforgettable Night in 1993 became a storm of controversy that followed her for years. She was already a household name, admired for her authenticity and the way she honored country music traditions. But with one decision, one daring step onto a stage, she found herself at the center of a debate that shook Nashville. While many saw a bold display of confidence, others viewed it as a betrayal of everything she once represented. A girl from Chalky, Oklahoma, Reba McEntire's story began far from the flashing lights of award shows. Born on March 28, 1955, in McAlester, Oklahoma, she grew up on her family's ranch in Chalky. Life was anything but easy. Her father, Clark, was a champion steer roper who had won 3 world titles, while her mother, Jacqueline, set aside her own dreams of becoming a country singer to raise the family. Their home was modest. So modest, in fact, that Reba recalled they didn't have a phone until she was in 5th grade. The children worked hard on the ranch. By the time Reba was 6, she was helping round up cattle, and at 7 her day often began before sunrise and ended after dark. Her mother, however, kept music alive in the household. During long drives to rodeo events, Jacqueline taught Reba and her siblings to sing in harmony. These car rides became the earliest stages of what would become Reba's career. She and her siblings, Paik and Susie, eventually formed the Singing McEntires, performing at 4-H shows and even recording a rare single called The Ballad of John McEntire in 1971, honoring their grandfather. Reba's big break came in 1974 when she was asked to sing the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City. In the audience that night was country singer Red Steagall, who immediately recognized her talent. He offered to help her begin a career in Nashville. In March 1975, Reba and her mother packed up and drove nearly 700 miles to Tennessee, a trip filled with uncertainty but fueled by determination. The move was a turning point, though success didn't come overnight. For nearly a decade, Reba faced rejection, financial strain, and the constant battle of being told to sing songs that didn't feel true to her. She nearly gave up, but persistence became her greatest weapon, fighting for a voice in Nashville. Reba's first real opportunity came in late 1975 when Mercury Records signed her to a contract. It should have been the moment that launched her career, but instead it became years of frustration. Her debut single, I Don't Want to Be a One-Night Stand, barely registered on the charts. The following albums struggled as well, and for years she hovered on the edge of recognition without ever breaking through. She sang at small clubs for as little as $50 a night, often borrowing money from family to pay bills. Behind the spotlight, Reba's life in Nashville was marked by cheap apartments, constant rejections, and the heavy burden of believing in a dream that felt out of reach. Her record label pushed her toward a polished pop country sound, something Reba never felt comfortable with. She wanted to sing the music she grew up with, the kind that told stories of heartbreak and resilience, but executives insisted on chasing radio trends. By 1981, she was worn down by the endless struggle. Her album Heart to Heart leaned heavily into pop, and fans failed to embrace it. For the first time, she thought seriously about walking away from Nashville and returning to Oklahoma. But in 1983, everything changed with Can't Even Get the Blues. Mercury had originally planned for another singer to record the track, but Reba fought for it. Against her producer's doubts, she insisted it was her song. When it climbed to #1 on the Billboard Country chart in January 1983, Reba was on a broken-down tour bus. Stranded on the side of the road, she heard the news that she had her first chart-topping single. The symbolism was hard to miss. Years of struggle, disappointment, and rejection finally gave way to a glimmer of hope. Her career began to turn, and soon after, she made a bold decision. She left Mercury Records for MCA, paying her way out of the contract because she was determined to take control of her music. It was a risk that could have ended everything. But for Reba, it was the only path forward. By the early 1990s, Reba McEntire was no longer the struggling singer from Oklahoma. She was at the top of her game, releasing hit albums and winning awards that confirmed her place as one of country music's leading women. But in 1993, one moment on stage threatened to overshadow all of it. On September 29, 1993, at the Country Music Association Awards in Nashville, Reba walked on stage in a gown designed by Sandy Spica Borchetta. It was unlike anything anyone expected from her. The floor-length velvet dress was fire red, with a neckline plunging all the way to her navel, held together by a sheer panel covered in crystals. For a woman who had always been seen as modest and wholesome, the sight was shocking. As Reba sang "Does He Love You" with Linda Davis, the cameras tried to adjust, cutting away at angles to avoid focusing too long on the revealing gown. The duet itself won Vocal Event of the Year, but the dress stole the show. By the next morning, 37 newspapers across the country featured headlines about it. Some praised her daring new look. Others accused her of betraying her image. In Tulsa, a radio station received more than 10,000 calls in a single day debating whether Reba had gone too far. Her fan mail spiked, with over 850 letters about the dress alone, some applauding her boldness, many filled with anger. One fan club office counted more than 1,200 letters, some from people who claimed they felt betrayed and even destroyed her albums. Nashville's conservative circles buzzed with disapproval. Garth Brooks, sitting in the front row, was visibly stunned, while Dolly Parton later joked, "Well, honey, she just out, dollied Dolly." The backlash wasn't limited to the public. Reba's own family, known for their traditional values, struggled with what they had just witnessed. Her mother clutched her daughter Susie's arm in the audience, whispering, "Oh, Susie." Backstage, the air was heavy until her father broke the tension with a joke. "Reba, did you have that dress on backward?" Laughter helped, but later Jacqueline pulled her daughter aside and asked, "What are all those little girls who look up to you going to think?" It was a defining moment. For the first time in her career, Reba realized that fame could demand a price far beyond music. 2 years before the red dress stirred controversy, Reba McEntire's life had already been torn apart by a tragedy that would haunt her forever. On March 16, 1991, just hours after performing a private show in San Diego for IBM executives, 2 planes were scheduled to carry Reba's band and crew to Fort Wayne, Indiana, for their next show. Reba herself, along with her husband and manager Naval Blackstock and her stylist, decided to stay overnight in San Diego. That decision saved her life. In the early hours of the morning at 1:45 a.m., one of the planes departed Brownfield Municipal Airport. Within minutes, its wings struck the side of Otay Mountain at 4,000 feet. The aircraft erupted into flames, scattering wreckage and debris across the rugged terrain. Everyone on board, 8 of Reba's band members, her tour manager, and both pilots, was killed instantly. Among the dead were Kirk Capello, Michael Thomas, Tony Saputo, Paula Evans, Terry Jackson, Joey Ciganero, Chris Austin, and tour manager Jim Hammond. Reba was devastated. She later recalled Narvel walking back and forth in their hotel room at 2 or 3 in the morning, delivering the news in broken sentences. "Are they okay?" she asked. His reply, "I don't think so." In interviews decades later, Reba admitted the grief never left her. "I'm sorry, it's been 20 years, but it's just like, I don't guess it ever quits hurting." Investigators later ruled the crash completely preventable. Pilot error, poor altitude decisions, lack of terrain awareness, and misinformation from an FAA specialist all contributed to the disaster. Reba, however, never blamed God. But the weight of loss crushed her spirit. Vince Gill and Dolly Parton offered their own bands so she could continue her tour, but Reba refused. Instead, she poured her grief into music. 6 months later, she released For My Broken Heart, an album dedicated to those she lost. Songs like the title track, and If I Had Only Known, became tributes not only to her band, but also to the fragility of life. The album sold millions, becoming the first by a female country artist to go double platinum. But for Reba, its success was measured in something else. It was the only way she knew how to keep her bandmates alive in memory. Love, divorce, and betrayal. While Reba McEntire's professional life soared, her personal relationships often pulled her into heartbreak. In 1976, at just 21 years old, she married Charlie Battles, a former steer wrestling champion who was 10 years older and already had 2 sons. At first, their life on a ranch in Oklahoma seemed steady. But as Reba's career began to rise in the 1980s, the marriage began to fracture. Charlie wanted her to slow down, but Reba was chasing her dream with a determination that left little space for compromise. By 1987, she filed for divorce, later admitting, "I guess I chose my career over my marriage." Only 2 years later, in 1989, she married Narvel Blackstock, her manager and a former steel guitar player in her band. Their wedding took place on Lake Tahoe in a private boat ceremony. Together, they built Starstruck Entertainment, a company that handled every aspect of her career. Narvel became not only her husband but also her business partner, making their relationship both deeply personal and unavoidably professional. With Narvel, Reba also became a stepmother to his 3 children. And in February 1990, she gave birth to her only biological child, Shelby. For years, they seemed like a power couple in country music. But behind the scenes, cracks formed. After 26 years of marriage, Reba was blindsided when Narvel asked for a divorce in 2015. She later admitted she didn't want it, but Narvel did. The separation became not just emotional but financial. He walked away with nearly half of her fortune, around $47 million. For a woman who had fought her way to the top, it was another painful reminder of how fragile stability could be. To make matters worse, rumors swirled that Narvel had quickly moved on with a close family friend. Reba, devastated but resilient, had to learn how to manage her own career for the first time without him. She leaned on her faith, her family, and her fans. But the wound left by that divorce never fully healed. Even today, she maintains close ties with her stepchildren, insisting she still claims them as her own. Yet the betrayal left a scar that mirrored the tragedies she had already endured in her professional life. Faith, activism, and the legacy of a survivor. Through every heartbreak, Reba McEntire turned to the one constant in her life, her faith. She has often said that being a Christian helped her endure when everything else fell apart. That faith carried her through the grief of the 1991 plane crash, the pain of 2 divorces, and the storms of public criticism. But faith alone did not keep her from speaking out when she believed it mattered. Reba became one of the few country stars willing to take controversial stands. In 2015, she publicly supported same-sex marriage, saying, "I don't understand why people have a problem with it. I'm a very spiritual person, but I don't judge." The backlash was immediate. A Facebook page calling for her boycott gained more than 50,000 followers in its first week. Some fans walked out of her concerts, and she lost thousands of social media followers. Still, she did not back down. On the day the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, Reba posted a rainbow-colored version of her logo online. She also spoke out about politics, opposing the Iraq War in 2003, turning down an invitation to perform at Donald Trump's inauguration in 2017, and publicly supporting the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020. Each time, she paid the price in lost fans, dropped sales, and bitter criticism. Yet each time she reminded the world that being true to her conscience mattered more than popularity. Even within her own industry, Reba fought against sexism and ageism. In 2010, she became the first woman over 50 to debut an album at #1 on the country charts. When radio stations ignored older female artists, she called them out directly, pushing for more recognition for women like Martina McBride and Trisha Yearwood. In 2018, when the CMA announced an all-male lineup for Entertainer of the Year, Reba stood on stage and asked, "What's wrong with this picture?" The audience erupted in applause. Her legacy is not only in the 75 million records sold, the countless awards, or the hit TV shows. It is in the way she faced down grief, betrayal, and controversy and kept going. Reba McEntire's story is proof that even in tragedy, resilience can turn pain into purpose. Reba McEntire has endured heartbreak, scandal, and loss. Yet, she continues to stand tall as one of country music's most powerful voices. From the red dress that shocked Nashville to the crash that stole her band, her journey has never been easy. But maybe that's what makes her legacy so unforgettable. What do you think Reba's boldness has made her stronger, or has it cost her too much along the way? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.